Hello. You're overtaking. This is not going to go well. Once again, you're welcome. Welcome to this week's Ride with Nick, where we are going to be reviewing the BSA Goldstar. It's a £6,500 classic retro looking motorcycle. This particular one is a Highland green and chrome. We've got underneath here a 652 single cc engine, 45 horsepower, 18-inch wheel at the front, 17 at the back. Classic retro looks. It's an homage to the 1950s original. And you know, if it wasn't for this oil-cooled radiator at the front, USB socket hanging on there, and of course an electric start, you kind of wouldn't know any better. Let's find out what it's all about. Before we hop on, let's just have a look at some very key details with this bike. Dead giveaway on the front, the ABS disc. We've got a lovely high quality proper Brembo caliper mashed on there. We've got top of the headlights, a very unusual, nice detail there with the warning lights on this kind of ring bezel. And then of course 1903 British Small Arms logo on the top of the chrome fuel filler cap. That is repeated all over the bike. We've got 3 rifles here, we've got 3 rifles here. This motorcycle is covered in British small armaments, weapons. Well, what we have here is a resurrection. And yeah, wasn't overly moved by the whole thing when I saw it this morning. It just looked like somebody had no imagination whatsoever, and they kind of copied it and made a new one. But spending a bit of time with this bike, you realize that's not what it's about at all. Firstly, I am hugely overdressed for something like this. A rucker 2-piece suit is not the thing. What you want is bright sunshine. You want Sunday. You want a pair of riding jeans and an old scruffy battered looking leather jacket, and then you're ready to go. This bike doesn't look like much on paper, and it doesn't feel like a whole lot either compared to the kind of things we're used to. But then that would be to get it wrong. You're misjudging it. This is a simple motorcycle. It's a £6,500 motorcycle, and you're really thinking Triumph T100, bargain. I don't mean the Triumph, I mean this compared to it. The Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, very similar, but a different character, because underneath this bike we have a 652cc 45 brake horsepower single cylinder engine, and it's the big single that gives this bike its character. So you've got a swathe of torque above 1500 and kind of runs out about 5.5, but then this is a new bike, so that might run on to something like 6,000. There we go. Let's check the brakes. Brakes! Now you could just feel the ABS activating there, but they're strong and progressive, and you would not have got that on a 1950s bike. So it's modern, it's up to date, it works. You've got electric start, you've got a kill switch, you've got lights that work. Woo! So back to the engine. That is basically what this bike is all about. The whole bike's built around that engine. So when you roll on, you can feel that single piston battering away underneath you. Hello. And doing its job. The only thing is, when you roll off, it feels very suddenly like a heavy sort of engine braking. You really can feel that this bike is all about riding that single cylinder. But it makes it direct. The throttle is very direct and accurate. It's progressive and it's linear, which you want from a bike like this. It's narrow and small and nimble, so on roads, looks like a house from the 1950s, on roads like this, which is where you'd be wanting to go, either that or into town to pose outside a cafe, which it would do equally as well, the chrome tank and this highland green colour. It's direct, and because of that, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. In fact, it's a lot more fun than it should be for £6,500. Big Mickey Mouse mirrors, they work very well. There's no moving around. They're stable, strong and clear. I can see everything that's going on behind me, which you'd want. I like these clocks. It took me a little bit of time to get used to the backward sweeping motion which they have. Obviously, your rev counter usually revs up and your speedo usually climbs up. But these climb down and round. Hello, it's a day for it by the looks of things. And it's neat with the miles per hour logo there, and just neat. What we have here as well is a small circular bezel, which is a nice touch, chromed over, and this is where your warning lights are. So if I put my hazard lights on, you can see there. If I put my indicators on, you can see there. The switchgear, talking of indicators, is a little bit cheap and cheerful, a bit generic. It could be off of any bike. It doesn't feel particularly special or unique to this model. Bit of a parts bin special, but that's the only thing. The rest of it actually feels like someone's made something of an effort. This is lovely. Not sure I need 3 rifles on my motorcycle, but it's harking back to 1903 when this company was formulated making weapons. And it then went on to make things like this, which is not a weapon. It's a thoroughly likeable little bike. So as we push on a little bit and just move up a pace, the gearbox works well. There's no quick shifter, but you can actually, if you roll off, down change without changing gear. It sometimes lets you do that. Oh, it does. If you just kind of blip off. So I'm not touching the clutch, I'm just rolling off, and that's me down a gear, rolling back on, and then rolling off, I can change up a gear. It actually allows that. Quick shifter without quick shift. I like it. So the gearbox, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get waxing lyrical about a gearbox on a £6,500 bike. It does the job. There we go. Continuing that theme of simplicity. Very characterful single. Thank you. I appreciate that. Simple, and it works. A bit like me. So pushing on, you've got the gearbox doing its job. We've already checked the brakes, and they're super. The engine is a joy. The suspension is where I was heading. They reckon this bike is good for 103 miles an hour. It's the whole ton-up thing. But it's, oh, clunky. It's not where it's happy. And with suspension like this, you'd be looking to kind of work in its natural zone, which is half of that speed, 50, 60. All day long, this bike is delighted to be at speeds like that. Although saying that, I'm slightly over. The suspension is non-adjustable on the front, and it's twin shocks at the back, which are adjustable for preload only, so you haven't got a lot to play with. And as long as the road doesn't get too challenging, it works perfectly. But when it gets bumpy and clumpy and quick, or you're going around a corner and finding your way over bumps, it kind of yaws and wallows. Also, at slow speed, turning it into a roundabout, because of that big 18-inch front wheel at the front, it kind of feels a bit kind of heavy and floppy. It flops into a slow speed corner. because we've got an 18-inch front, 17-inch rear, which gives it a particular geometry and feeling. But out here on the move, none of that causes a problem. Riding position is comfortable for a taller rider, and the bike is A2 compatible. So they're trying to entice younger riders in. How would that be for you? I think it'd be super. I think it'd be absolutely super. Hoopla. There we go. There's that front Brembo again. You're bloody grateful for its presence. Because you never know what you're going to find around the next corner. When it comes to gadgets and technology, well, there isn't any. Unless you count this weird looking plastic pod here that you can open up, and there I've got a USB-C and a traditional USB cable. So you could plug in your peripherals, you could have a quad lock here on the handlebars, so you feel it wavering around a little bit. It's not the highest quality suspension. You can easily show up its shortcomings. But you can plug in your peripherals, you can plug in your mobile phone. Your phone? What's a phone? You know what I'm saying. Everything does what it's supposed to do. Even if it does it in a not particularly inspiring manner. It does feel good. But in a very simplistic way. It's not complicated. And in a way, that leaves me wanting more. I don't feel particularly fulfilled on this bike. But as I said, it's not really for pushing on. It doesn't respond well to pushing on. It wants to just bumble along. Tree-lined streets with the sun shining through, feeling good about your life. Maybe in another 15 years, this will be the bike for me. When I get all dewy-eyed and harking back to a past that I never lived through. So it doesn't touch me on that kind of nostalgic level. But I can understand if you were that person, well, in 1950s, 2023. So you'd have to be 73. And there are plenty of people motorcycling at 73. Or even 63, if you're born right at the end of it. So there you go. I just missed out on this bike. It was a little bit before my time. But it looks stunning. It's all curves and swoopy engine cases, and there we are. Sun's out. That's all it wanted. And you're overtaking. This is not going to go well. Once again, you're welcome. Once again, I'm very glad we've got modern brakes. Aye, aye. Yeah, where were we? That took me aback. We were at the fake cooling fins on the liquid-cooled engine. The only thing that gives the game away slightly is the big radiator down here on the front. But it doesn't look out of character. It doesn't. It gels with the rest of the bike. You don't really feel inclined to push this on. If you do, you don't get the kind of responses you're looking for. So ordinarily on a road like this, I'd be kind of just shimmying on a little bit quicker than I am now. But if you just wind it back a bit, slow down, start looking around at the view, pay attention to what you're moving through. That was a poem. Then it rewards you. What a great way to get around. Imagine India must be full of these things. And back to the Indian thing, there is a perception that things built in India are not particularly good quality, or they may be in some way substandard. And I would say the paintwork is not great. I don't know why, this is a brand new bike, but the paintwork all looks a little bit kind of thin and scuffed and just not a very high quality. Maybe it's this specific bike, maybe not, but the rest of the bike stacks up very well. Wouldn't like to run it through a Scottish winter, but then you wouldn't like to run many things through a Scottish winter. Overall, I'm giving it a good solid thumbs up. Sometimes it does us the world of good just to slow down a little bit and make things that little bit simpler. And that's exactly what this motorcycle does. This is a very simple, straightforward piece of equipment. It's not going to set the world on fire and it's not going to change anything, but the world is a better place for having it. It's fighting head to head with the Royal Enfield at £6,500. What do you want for £6,500? Because everything you could ever hope for is here. It's an A2 license compatible bike. It's very accessible for young, for old. It'll go out in the town. It'll go out on the B roads. It will look good. And it feels pretty well put together. It's trying to be a Triumph T100 and it never will be because it's built to a price point and you can feel that. But generally, I wasn't expecting much and I got a whole lot more than I was looking for. Thoroughly, thoroughly likable bike. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ride with Nick. Scotland is making its presence felt. If you like this, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you again next week with something new.
That was the titties.
Nice.